First off, thank you all for being here. This is going to be a really amazing webinar, and I'm excited. One thing I want to just first introduce Chris. So, Chris, it has been so awesome to know you. It's been years at this point. It's been really cool to kind of just see the progression of what in your role and how you've like moved up through Swift Drops and what your vision is and what you've done. And the biggest thing that I just have so much appreciation for is that when I hosted the first Home Care Champions experience last year, you were like, "Hey, we're here to support you, and you are a top sponsor." And I was like, "This is amazing. Thank you so much." And then boom, here we are coming back to the next one, September this year, and you're the top sponsor again. And so I'm just so grateful for you. I love everything that you guys do. And one of the biggest things that I appreciate about you specifically, and we've had so many conversations about this, is that you're all about just trying to provide value. You're
Right.
not here to just try and pitch something or sell something. It's really about how can I be of service? How can I, really just educate people? Because one of my favorite things, and you and I talk about, I'm sure you're going to touch on it today, is that, you know, the softwares that you're using means nothing if you don't have the systems behind it. And so
Right.
no matter what, you need to have systems in place. And I've been spending a ton of time on my own systems and building this out. It's so critical. So without further ado, Chris, take it away. Thank you so much for being here. You're amazing.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is it. That's exactly what we're going to do. I made a couple of these slides here. Not a big PowerPoint guy, so I just wanted to have some things that are visual in the background. But I'm not going to talk about SwiftOps really at all. I'm not going to try and tell you should come to SwiftOps. You should use SwiftOps. That's not really my. Pull this over. That's not really my thing. Really, what I want to do is share a lot of the knowledge that I've had. I've been in many different industries. I've helped startups. I've helped experienced locations that were struggling, stuck, that were successful and wanted to go to the next level, and was able to impart just a lot of the knowledge that I have, which comes from just picking pieces out of my past that worked. And then eventually this evolved as I evolved and had mentors and such, and learned as I grew what worked. And then I had a system that I was able to put in place regardless of the industry. So that's what I call the trifecta. My last name is Trempe, and people call me Trempe because there's an E on the end. So when I really started using this, I called it the Trempe trifecta. And it was something that in an industry I was in for about a decade, I would preach and teach to new franchisees, new independent agency owners, or I would be able to go into a damaged area and just figure out, is it the leader? Is it the people? Is it the process? And all of it comes from this, because there's just so much to it. So Nick already did a good job introducing me. I'm the president and COO of Swift Ops, and I love the home care industry. It's become my new home over the last 5.5, 6 years. It's just it's a great relationship based industry where even competitors are friendly. There's rivalries, but it's friendly, and I really that's why I want to share more. Right, I want to get this information out. So let me just go into kind of what this is all about. And Nick, I might use you for some questions and such just to bounce it off, because you're running a company too, right?
Yeah, I'm here for it. I love it.
Okay. Okay. So I call what I'm not going to call this home care, right? Because this can happen in any industry. I call it a service economy. So if you're providing a service for a fee, you're in the service economy, whether it's retail, whether it's plumbing or construction or taxes, which I was in that industry, home care, home health, whatever it is, you're charging a fee, which means that you need to grow. You need people to help you sell it and maintain it, and then you need those people you sold to talk about you, so that you get more customers or they come back. Okay, so service economy wise is basically anything. And I made this so that it doesn't say home care because I want you to understand that this can plug and play into other businesses. Three aspects: growth, retention, conversion. That's it. Every business in the service economy has these three pillars that if you do not figure out the, let's call them tree branches that come off them as to how to trigger the KPI you have behind it, you're going to fail. And you're going to be either one and done, start up and out. You're going to be a grinder who gets to a certain point and can't scale past it. Or you're going to reach a certain amount of success and then not be able to hit that next level. Now, there's a lot of people out there that can help, right? Nick helps you with your voice, your digital voice, your why. Steve Weiss is out there to help you grow and take your agency to a certain level, trying to build through sales, marketing. You know, the Nobles, Greg Mazza, Candace Slusher, Lucas Carroll. All these people are out there with the same ability to try and help you. A lot of them are coming right at what I'm talking about, but hitting key parts. So this is about figuring out the initial foundation. So when you look at now home care and you look at growth, what could that be? So I'm not just talking about, oh, I need 10 more clients. 10 more clients is nothing if those 10 clients are 3 hours a week, right? That's not going to get you enough revenue. That's not going to get you enough work to keep your caregivers, so on and so forth. What I'm talking about is, yes, new clients, but growth could be expanding my services, right? Maybe if I'm providing companions care, I can expand on that, or maybe I want to go into certification for dementia, or maybe I'm looking at skilled, maybe I'm looking at home health aides, maybe I'm looking at some different type, medication reminders, whatever it is. Diversification is another one. So a lot of folks come out of the gate and they tell us, I'm doing private pay, but I'm going to do VA and Medicaid in the future. Okay. Do you know how long that process is to get signed up, and do you even know about it? Right. But diversification is, do I go into VA services, long-term care, Medicaid, staffing or registry? Do I go into residential living, group homes, facilities? That is looking at, I've maxed out one and it's not going to grow to the level that my KPI set at. I need others. And that's where this scale out process comes from. Initially, you're looking at what you can do, right? You have a certain amount of money, launch the agency and go. Or you're stuck because you're grinding and you don't have any profit margin. And then partnerships, referrals, and people. So people's part of growth too. It's an important part. Your partnerships are big, whether it's with local agencies that are competitors, whether it's vendors, whether it's hospitals, referral sources, rehab centers, whatever it is, right? We're just going to encompass growth as all of that. Growth is going to be employees, people, and relationships and clients. So the goal of growth is revenue. The goal of all of this, the trifecta, is revenue. So I didn't say that initially. And what I love about the home care industry is, people will tell you, I love it. I did it because my grandma was sick, or they have a story, and that's what drives the passion that's inside this industry, which is awesome, and which is why so many people come in it and try and succeed. But it's also why many people flame out, because they have a passion for it, but they don't have an understanding about how to lay the groundwork and get to a point of actually making a profit. So, all these people that are paying to attend events and going to try and learn more, you're not going to learn more about how to be more passionate. You're going to learn more to make a profit, to get yourself out of the business, so your head's not spinning in the whirlwind on a daily basis. So I talk about home care a little differently. That sometimes makes me unpopular, that it's about money. It is about providing care. It is about providing service. But you will not be able to provide service if you do not build a right foundation to make money. You have to have a profit margin built in and understand that. So that's what this is about. And sometimes that, like I said, it's not popular that I say that, but if I asked everyone to give up all the money they were making, would they still do it? Some would. Some would. But be a not for profit then.
And I think that there's something important here, Chris, about money, and I love this like topic, is that at the end of the day, this is what my coach used to say, is that money is a tool.
Hmm.
And so, whatever your beliefs around money are, you need to understand that it is a tool for you to do more. And it's the fuel
That's
that
right.
is your business. And so, great, you want to help people? Guess how you help more people? Make more money. If you make
That's
more
right.
people, you can hire more people, you can do more marketing, you can invest in more things. And so, it doesn't, for me, like money is not a driving factor for me, but it's still like the highest, one of the
That's right.
highest priorities. I like to think about it as like revenue generating activities. And so
Hmm.
like it's the lifeblood of our business. We need to make sure that, you know, we are driving. Yes, we want to
Right.
help people, but it's essential that we are making sure that this is top of mind.
That's right. The more profit that you make, the more ability you have to change people's lives, which is the clients and your employees. But it's not a good culture when you're scrapping and clawing and can't pay your bills, and that's not good for anybody. But you're right. That is the fuel. That is the health of your business. So that's what this is about. So growth is about trying to achieve a certain level of revenue that allows you to experience the success you want. Retention, where we hear a lot about turnover, caregiver shortage, and what can I do to hire more people? That obviously is a huge deal. I always dealt with because anywhere you go, you're going to have it's hard to hire people, right? You got to find the right fit. Not you can't hire everybody. Some jobs require a certain skill set, or roles that you're going to bring on. It's difficult. I always look at it as retention, right? Retention is going to get you hiring because, make it have the ability to be able to control your hiring. But when we talk about retention, we're talking about clients and employees, retaining partnerships, maintaining your compliance. That's important, especially if you're providing Medicaid and you're violating EVV protocol and you don't want to lose that service. Retention of the family members of the clients or the communities that you're working with. All these things, referral partnerships, this retention, but really, it's about understanding how long do I or is the average inside of this industry do people keep clients and do people keep employees? Now, in home care, it's different, right? It's shorter lifespan. So, couple inside data points I pulled across the entire SwiftOps network. I pulled some aggregate reporting on average client life cycle and average employee life cycle. They pretty much match. Clients is around 6 months, and caregivers is around 7 months. So the average, based on Activated Insights benchmarking report last year, because the new one's not out yet, well, the average um, was in between 8 to 12 months. I can only speak to the real data that I see based on the entire network of SwiftOps, which is rather large. So when
It's
you are trying,
sorry, that's such an interesting stat. I think it's like there's a certain element of like we need to do better from a
right,
care specifically from a caregiver standpoint because like your clients are dying, your caregivers are hopefully not dying.
right,
So like at least there's some justification around the client life cycle being shorter, but for our caregivers to be the same cycle, these are things to think about as we're talking about retention. Like, hey, we need to figure out and do better in these areas to making sure that these caregivers are sticking around for
that's right.
hopefully, years if that's the way that you're positioning yourself.
That's right. Yeah, and based on what I see, it comes from a lack of a strong foundation of the median and lower agencies. So those successful ones are carrying them longer because there's more hours, there's more transition to something else. Whereas you don't retain the clients because you can't, right? They pass away, they get hospitalized, something goes outside of your service means, and you have not done the right things in terms of growth to refill the vase. So your caregivers have no more work, they're forced to go somewhere else. So yeah, you're right. It's a matter of all of these filling each other and they flow, and that brings you kind of that foundation and confidence that okay, regardless of what happens, we're going to be able to survive this. So retention can go in different ways too. You can look at um, I look at it in two different ways. For me, I'm the agencies they don't they don't pass away, but they do die. Okay, so I look at first year and then I look at 1 year plus. That's two different retentions. My new client, my new subscriber retention is always going to be much lower. Always. It's going to be probably 30 to 40% lower than what we maintain when people stay longer than a year. That's just the way it is. Everywhere I've been, every industry I've been in, new client or new service retention is always lower because you don't have the relationship, right? So you have to understand that and then say, okay, how do I get them to a year? So knowing what I told you about Swift Ops, it's how do I get them to month 7? How do I get them to month 8? What's happening with my clients? What's happening with my employees? So with the clients, there's things you can't help. Obviously, like Nick said, they pass away, hospitalized, they go somewhere, but you need to have someone that's coming in. What's that referral process like to be able to come in? Or can you provide services when they get hospitalized still? Or what's the plan, the interim plan, if they're going to come back and have that in-home care after hospitalization? But anyway, that's kind of what I'm going to look at as a 6, 7 month time frame when I'm talking as we keep going. And then finally is conversion. This is the oak tree. If you cannot convert, you will not grow, you will not retain, like period. So my conversion goals are always super ridiculously high. And a lot of times it's a stretch, but we've always been able to, wherever I've been, hit it. Now, I've come across people that have told me, like, what's your conversion? Well, I don't know. Oh, geez. Okay, that's no good. If you don't know what you're converting. But they'll be like, I don't know, I convert like 30%. 30% of what? When you actually have them in a full, like you locked them in a demo or a product pitch or a assessment or whatever it is, whatever industry you're in, or is it the initial phone call? Because those are two different things. We'll talk about that. But clients, employees, training, conversion, got to have it. How do people stay? You give them value. I stayed at a place to work for many years because they just kept feeding me stuff. Like I was like, okay, I don't really like it here anymore, but they keep certifying me and stuff. They keep providing me this training that would cost thousands of dollars. So I'll stay and build myself into something I want to be. You have to think your caregivers do not want to work for you for 35 years. I just want to make sure everyone knows that. Okay. They might tell you that, but if they win the lottery, they're not coming back. If they can excel at their job and you give them other skills and some other company that comes to them and offers them $25,000 more than you're paying, you should be proud of them, right? You shouldn't be mad about that. That's the goal, but that's retention. You keep them until they leave, but you know that there's an expiration date. Now there are people that stay 30 years. I know everyone's going to say, "Well, my caregivers stay 30 years."
Well, and
I
I think
understand.
there's an important element too with retention in coming back to like the money conversation, in the sense that there's a lot of things that you can do that don't require any money.
Right.
And so if you think, oh, well, it's easy because these other agencies, well, they can pay more. There's other things that you can do that don't require a lot of money. But in also understanding that money is the tool, the more money that you have, the more things that you can, do for them. I just got a call with one of my clients and we're kind of mapping out basically their caregiver offer and everything that they
Yeah.
do for their caregivers to help with conversions.
Yeah.
And they're doing a bunch of stuff because they're pretty well established agency, but they're doing baseball games and they do something for Valentine's Day, they do something for Christmas and Halloween and all these different things. Now I don't know what they're spending on those aspects, but you can do things, you can scrape together things pretty well if you just get creative and smart. So
Right.
if you're thinking, oh, I don't have the funds for this, and don't have this, like, this is one of those things that you can get creative to
Mm-hmm.
really help in these different areas.
True, definitely true. 100%. There's a lot of that when you first start out, for sure. Because and I've been there. I've been there as a startup. I've been there when you've got flexibility and capital to be able to do things. And what's funny is when you get to the point where you have flexibility, sometimes you forget all that stuff because you're so busy. And then you forget to put the time into the things you did to get you to that point, which is funny. But um, these three things here are key. Now, one interesting story I'll tell you from my past. So just to try and validate a little bit about what I've gone through and some challenges. And I'll paint you a picture. Imagine now you've got, all right, you're in your home care agency. You've built your annual budget. You're ready to go, right? You know what numbers you have to hit. You know the revenue you have to have. Now, what if I gave you these specific rules around what you could do? If I said, okay, you need to make $10 million, whatever it is, you have to make 90% of that in 4 months. And then the other 8 months of the year, you just need to make up the rest of the 10% because that's when all your clients are going to come through in this 4 months. Also, you have to hire people to service all of these clients, but I'm going to give you a date that it locks. And that coincides with the date that you can start making money. So as soon as you open your doors, you no longer can hire anybody, but I still need you to make 90% of that revenue. And if people quit, figure it out. If people leave, figure it out. That is a real life scenario of an industry I was in. So when I hear caregiver shortage, this and this and this, I don't know what to do. To me, it doesn't seem like it's so insurmountable because I've gone through a shortage when you couldn't hire anymore. I might have hired 300 employees. Every year you'd have, 150 to 200 that still were getting hours because it was a very similar difference of no client base, no hours. Very, very same thing. So the approach that I've built into this really has that in mind and that mindset of don't stop. Don't stop hiring. Don't stop recruiting. Don't stop until you're told to stop. For all of you, there is no stop date, right? There's nothing saying that you can't hire people and say, hey, I'm going to put you on an on-call. If you can keep you on file, but I'd like to hire you, bring you on. That way I can start filtering you some hours. Now, not everyone might not take that, but I'm telling you, at some point, those come in handy to have an extra 25, 50 people. But just imagine if you had someone that was servicing for your clients and they quit and then you could not hire anymore. What would you do? I've been through that to be able to say, okay, how do I have conversations to get people who are already overworked to help me solve this problem? How do I solve it myself? What can I do to partner with someone to do it? All of that goes into the mindset of don't stop, continue, keep building, because if you had a start date or a stop date, you'd be in trouble. And that's what, when I was in this industry, that's what would sink people. Is I'd go and I would talk to people and say, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? Make them a list. And there was one gentleman, he was in Milwaukee, super nice guy, super smart. He had probably about 12 locations that he was over, multi-unit. So he's got 12 managers. He's probably managing about 150 people. And, we're about 2 months away from the date that you have to stop hiring. He'd done nothing. So I had a hiring fair. I did this, I did that. I'm like, well, did you do? I start laying out all these things, and he just sat back and he said, how did you do all of these things? I said, you got to learn prioritization, right? You have to understand what's important, when to do it, and build a system. And I helped him build that to be able to recruit within 2 months and shorten it. So what I've built in this aspect of the trifecta, it can work. Obviously, if it can work in that situation, it can work in home care because it does not stop, and you're good to keep hiring. So traditional KPIs that I've laid out for people, and again, this totally varies on size of the agency, how long you've been open, the person's ability, scalability, how many people you have with you, right? But this lays the foundation typically. The growth really depends on the agency tenure, right? And what I mean by that is, if you're a startup and I tell you to grow 10%, that's not good, right? You need to look at how many billable hours can I generate versus, the average charge or the average pay. What's my profit margin there to be able to get myself into a situation where I can expand? That's what you're looking at. And that's a different conversation. And it's typically a monthly type build out. Whereas experienced offices, I always tell them, if you can grow 10%, that at a minimum, this is just a minimum. If you can grow 10%, in revenue, clear revenue. I'm not saying gross. I'm saying net EBITDA 10%. You're going to be okay. It is very hard. I base my goals at SwiftOps on this, right? So, we have goals in terms of monthly growth of our revenue based in this process here. Retention wise, the baseline again, 6 to 7 months in home care, excuse me, should be 85% or higher in 6 month increments. Now, if you look at the benchmarking report again, it's much lower than 85%, especially for smaller agencies. But when you get into the 75 percentile or the 100 percentile of agencies that are doing well and succeeding, it's past 85% of retention. There correlation there. I'm trying to help startup and median get to that level where that's reality. But you can't have that be reality until you set it. You can't say I'm going to do 65% this year and then 5% more next year. It doesn't work that way. You have to set a foundation. And then finally, conversion. Looking at clients, you should be looking at like a 4-to-1 ratio. And again, this is all baked in data. I'm not making this up. A 4-to-1 ratio of inquiries, so a phone call, an email, whatever, however you get your lead. You want at least one of those to become an assessment or a sofa visit or whatever you call it, in person, Zoom, whatever you do. And then from there, you want to make sure that the assessment becomes service. So the biggest part of this is this right here, this 95%. So 40% of those inquiries to an assessment, and then of that 40%, you want 95% conversion. So I used to tell people that, and they're like, oh, what are you talking? That's insane. You can't convert at 95%. No one can do that. I'm not talking about everyone that calls you. I'm talking about everyone you sit in front of. 40, of 40%, that 40% that called you, now they're sitting in front of you, that 40%, 95% of them should convert into a client for you of some sort. Unless, that 5% is unless you can't help them. But I would think that through your inquiry process, you would know if they want the services you provide. If not, your inquiry process is bad. Right? You don't have a good flow. You're not asking the right questions. Now, the average right now, well, not now. I'm interested what's going to be in the benchmarking report this year, but showed was right around 85 to 87%. That is not that far off from 95%. So, and again, much higher for well-established agencies, much lower for median and below. But these are what I tell people when I go into their business and say, okay, I'm going to review your books. I'm going to review your processes. You're going to tell me everything. I'm going to meet your people. You're going to show me what you do. But I'm telling you right now, this is what we're going to set as the goals. And then we'll tweak them based upon what we see. I might maybe you're converting at like 50%. I'm like, uh-oh, there's a problem there we need to solve, and I don't want it to feel overwhelming. But overall, these are the goals. And if you hit these, all I'm saying is if you hit these numbers, you'll be profitable. You'll win, right? As long as you control your expenses, you're not doing crazy stuff because your profit's built into this. Now, when you look at kind of, there's so many things you can go into. How do you do this? Well, obviously, growth, you need referrals, health checks. So what does that mean, right? Checking in on leads, checking in on clients that did assessments that turned you down, checking in on actual clients, checking in with their family members, checking in with vendors and partnerships about what's going on, who can you introduce me to, where are we going to go, talking with competitors. So that health checks kind of covers them all, but you're trying to get a pulse check of every lead that I had and everyone that came in. How are they doing? What's going on? Do you know anybody else you can send me? And then in terms of people, if you aren't doing a monthly open house or some sort of event that you are populating out to the masses, whether you do this like back in my day, the old guy, back in my day, there was no doing it virtually. You could totally do a virtual caregiver hiring open house, right? You'll get a quick idea if you want these people or not by how they come on camera or how they act on there, which you do on a phone call. But I would suggest doing a monthly open house so that it's built in, everyone knows it's coming. The days are set. I'd set them out for the entire year, and then I'd get all my marketing materials done, and I'd make someone in charge of being able to get that out. And maybe I flip flop it. It's in person one time, it's virtual the next. I don't know. But I need some sort of recurring knowledge of I have a pipeline that I'm driving outside of everything else I'm doing to find people to work for me. So if you're not doing something like that, think about it. It's been successful in the past. It's been things that I've seen where you get people and you're like, I don't have anything for them now. Maybe I can reach out later. But now you got them on file. And again, I'm not talking about software at all yet, right? But all these people that come go in your CRM. All these people then go in your system, right? As applicants. It's perfect because now you've got them on your list and you can communicate to them and you can show them how you're different. So some of the best people I ever got, I never would have thought I did, but because I did some open house and they caught some goofy ad that I ran, and they were like, I don't know, it's right by my house. It sounds kind of interesting, flexible hours, and they were fantastic people that became leaders and all that. Anyway, retention wise, it's the same jargon you hear. Incentives, gamification, unit utilization, important. Now, I will talk about software here for a second. If your software doesn't provide you some sort of visibility quickly of your caregiver utilization, and what I don't mean the schedule, I mean, I want 45 hours. You've been giving me 30 hours, which means there's a deficiency in utilization based on what you promised me. Or I told you I wanted 40 hours. You keep giving me 60. Or you're not using me at all. So in SwiftOps, we do have a dashboard like that, caregiver utilization. It's a one pager. Everyone's on there. And you can see red, green, yellow. If you are overusing them, perfectly using them, not using them at all. And what they actually requested. That's huge. What Nick said earlier, why are people leaving? Right? They leave when the clients leave. So there you go. That's a good tool there. Here's another personal favorite of mine. I don't think I've ever heard anyone in home care talk about this, but this is just one I always share with any industry I'm talking to. Is service level interviews. So service economy, service level interviews. So you can kind of see how that flows. But service level interviews are not interviews for a job. They are interviews of current employees. It's not a review. It is not a coaching session. It has nothing to do with their merit. It is literally meeting with every one of your employees in a certain type of cycle, whether it's quarterly, monthly, biannually, annually, whatever it is, and just sitting down and saying, how's it going? What do you like about the job? What do you not like about the job? What have I done to make you upset? And then you can share, hey, you did a couple things I want to talk to you about, but you don't want to be coaching. But really, the goal of a service level interview is what do you want out of this role? That's all you want to find out. Do you want more hours? Do you want less hours? Do you want more training? Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to move to scheduling? Do you want to move to billing? Do you want to be an admin? Do you want to help me recruit? Do you want to be in interviews? This is how you begin to build developmental plans for these people and hold them accountable to what they said they wanted. Someone might say, I want your job, right? If you don't have to do these yourselves as the owner. Maybe you have a director or a long-term admin. They can do them. I've had people when I'm doing a service level interview tell me, I want your job. You shouldn't be sitting there. And I said, well, that's great. Tell me why. And then they tell me, and I say, okay, let's make a plan so you could take my job. I don't have it. You should have no problem with that, right? Because if they want to take your job, they're going to be tremendously helpful to you. And then eventually, you don't want that job forever. That's why you're going to see Steve Weiss and going to see Greg Mazza. You're trying to remove yourself from the business and elevate others to step into your role. Service level interviews, if you're not doing them, 15 minutes. I used to do them in 15 minutes. At a time when I had 300 employees, I met with every single employee on a service level interview. And that year, I think we called it maxing out. I maxed out my revenue by probably 14%, the goal that I had. Because these people were bought in. We were working together to try and get there. Now, A lot of people are mean. They're going to tell you things you don't want to hear. You just can't react, right? The service level interviews, they're critical to retention of caregivers or admin employees. On the other side, I know that supervisory visits get mandated or requested, but too many times I see that people aren't building this into their normal flow, and you should really be doing that, right? So, don't you want to inspect what you expect, right? So, I want to go out and see caregiver in action. I want to go out and see if the client is really as ornery as they say, because I have to pay a differential here. But I'm not telling anybody, I'll tell the client. I'm not telling the caregivers what I mean, that I'm showing up, right? Or you can do ride-alongs with them, right? And say, hey, I'm going to take you to breakfast before you go to so we could talk, service level interview, and then we're going to go look at the ship. Supervisory visits, watching that client in action, you might catch something that's change in condition or something like that, or just something that's off, or you might see an upsell opportunity. That's one, a coaching area for your caregiver, but also might be able to help you retain that client in a long time, in a long ways. Also, when was the last time the client saw you? Was it when you sold them your product? Because that doesn't leave a good taste in their mouth, right? They got the relationship. They may love the caregiver, but regardless, people appreciate communication, and you can do that through a family portal and all that. Written letters, cards like on Valentine's Day, but just random drop-ins to clients that maybe are on the fence of you think not are of leaving or long terms, or especially you should be doing supervisory visits right out of the gate on new clients. That's how they know you're engaged and involved, right? So these are just little things. I see it get skipped over because people get overwhelmed with the daily whirlwind. And then NPS, which is Net Promoter Score, um, that is what it is, right? Here's why I like NPS. And I used to hate it. I'll be honest with you. Like you get a phone call, rate me 1 through 10. I used to hate it. And I was like, people don't do it. You know what they do? People are telephone tough guys. People are keyboard warriors. They might hate your guts to your face. They're never going to say it, but they will chew you up on an NPS. So I saw the value in, ooh, this guy is angry, but trying to figure out what happened. And then you can't just take surveys. So, whether it's activated insight surveys or Listen 360 or your system has it built in, like we have one built in as well. Um, if you get the survey, you have to act on it. So for the ones that are great, you want to act on it. Thank you, personally, whatever it is, a letter, call, email, I don't know. But if it is a bad one, that's a personal connection, right? That's a visit, that's a call, that's something human to be like, I'm sorry that happened. And that can help you retain. You'd be shocked if people just get to throw up on you how you can change the game. And then looking for that changing condition process I mentioned from before, right? If you start seeing it deteriorate with someone, your 240-hour client is about to drop out on you. You better have a plan because that caregiver is going to be in a mess. You're going to be in a mess with all those billable hours gone. So just making sure you have a process in place for changing condition. We have a function you could turn like a questionnaire on for the caregiver to answer certain questions you want answered after every shift, and it will alert around changing condition. And then conversion. Here's the problem with conversion. If I pulled up the benchmarking report and showed you again, the ones doing well, they're closing at a high rate. The ones in the middle are still closing well. The ones below median are terrible. Here's why. You're not a closer. You stink at it, right? You're not a salesperson. You like people, right? So you like people. You like home care. You're passionate, but you are not a closer. So at that point, you either need to get training to become a closer, get a mentor to help you become a closer, or hire a closer. Because if I had to invest in one thing when I didn't have a lot of money, it would be someone that could close me business, period. Right. And then I would teach that person, hey, can you help me recruit? Hey, can you just help me with these admin responsibilities? And that person becomes part of your deal. But you have to be a closer. You have to be able to pitch your services, be empathetic, connect with them, but be flexible in your service costs. Now, I understand you can't be flexible with VA, Medicaid, long-term care. That is what it is. I'm talking about private pay. So in private pay, you should be building in some sort of your profit margin between what you're paying, your expenses, all that, and what you're charging. But there should be a little buffer that I could take this from 32 to 30 and still make a profit of what I need, my median. Like I don't go underwater. Because if that's why you're losing people and they are large hourly, billable hourly clients, rethink your strategy, right? And I don't think a lot of people think of that. They think, okay, I get this question a lot. What should my rate be? Oh boy, I can't tell you that. You have to you have to do your analysis. But if my neighbor's charging 20 and he's 21, I'm going to be 19.99 or I'm going to be 20 as well. Well, you know, that that might be good for them because they're only paying their caregivers $12 an hour. What are you paying them? Are you paying them 18? You paying them 16? What's the mileage? Are you paying mileage? What are you doing? The travel time? Did you factor that in? Your burden that goes into all that is important. So flexibility and cost is important. So one more side story. When I first got in and started to figure this out and started trying to apply it, I, I was a little bit of I didn't learn not to be a micromanager yet. I was a little bit of a micromanager. And I made every single one of my leaders. I was a multi-unit. I had at one time I had 65 locations, but at this time I had 26, I think. If any person trying to purchase our service was trying to say no or leave, they had to call me, and then I would talk to the person and close them. Everyone, day or night. This was a 14-hour a day business that went 24 hours for the last month. So, in that aspect, I spoke to a lot of people, but I had price flexibility. I knew exactly what I could take off or make them feel better if I needed to, if I couldn't provide the value. And that's why you're not a good closer if you cannot show the value. If it's just these are the services we have, it's $20 an hour. We've got this. We're going to do this electronically. We're going to come this day and that day, and you'll be able to see it in the family portal. There's no value there. The value is you. The value is your passion. The value is what your agency does that no one else does. The agency is what you're trying to build and how you're trying to take care of this loved one and what I'm going to provide you and the type of person and how we go through the process to pick the person that's going to be with you. All these things are humanized value, and home care is like, that's what it breathes. That's what the blood flow is. So you got to but then you still have to be able to go in and kind of be a salesy person. And then finally, conversion is all about transparency, tools, and communication. This line, I say a lot: bad data in, bad data out. Everything that I've been talking about, if you're not putting it into your system, if you're allowing your people to put garbage in, you're not going to be able to track your KPIs. You're going to be lost. You're going to go try and pull information. They didn't put in the referral source. They didn't put in a hire date. They didn't put in a stop date. They didn't put in a discharge date. I see it all the time. Why do you have a system then? Like it's not an Excel spreadsheet, right? It's there to help you hit these things. Okay. But communication to the client, communication to the caregiver, transparency to both. All these things that I talked about, I would tell everybody in my company. There's nothing wrong with telling caregiver A, we need to grow 10%. You don't have to tell them it's $2 million, right? You can say we need to grow 10%. I tell everyone at SwiftOps what we need to grow. They know what our quarterly goals are, whether they're in support, whether they're in sales, whether it's training, whatever it is, they know. So last here, yeah.
One thing I want to touch on real quick, Chris.
Yeah,
so, you're just talking about data, and I think it's just one of the things is so important is knowing your numbers, right? This is just, so much of what you talked about is, all of these things. And if you're not tracking this, then you don't know what's happening. And a lot of times people will say things like, and I'm guilty of this, especially when I started my business, it was like, I'm not good with numbers, right? If you're a business owner, you're not allowed to say that. That part of, you saying I'm not good with numbers, if you've ever said that, you need to remove that from your vocabulary, remove that from your identity, and
Right.
start becoming someone who is good with numbers because it is absolutely essential. And when you start having numbers, it makes it your life so much easier to
Mhm.
make decisions because now you have the data to back up what's working, what's not working. Just to give you an example, I recently hired somebody that's running my ads. So they're running Facebook ads, and I can see exactly, okay, well, how many of these leads came from Facebook? Did I have the call? Did I sell them on the call? And then I'm able to determine exactly what my ROI is on my advertising spend.
Hmm.
But if you're just throwing money at stuff or throwing activities at anything and not actually tracking, hey, is this actually helping? Is this moving the bottom line? Then you're wasting time doing things that may not be working because you're not tracking these things. And if
That's
you
right.
don't have the data, then you also don't know what areas you need to improve, to invest in training or things to look into and things to dive into. Because sometimes you may be like, yeah, no, I do all right in sales. And then you like actually look at your numbers and you go, oh, well, what are other people doing? What are my conversion numbers? Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. So we've got to know our numbers.
Yeah, 100%. That's the only way you're going to be able to, one, do something like this. And, some people that I've talked to, I've gone in and talked to, they've taken pieces of this that they liked and whatever resonates with you. But if you don't have data to be able to, it's lag and lead, right? The data is your lag. That's what happened in the past, but it's telling you the trend, which is the lead, is your behavior that's going to happen in the future. And if you don't change your behavior based on trends and adjust, like you said, and you don't know where to look, you're band-aiding a problem, but really there's a crack that's coming. And I look at this whole thing like a vase, right? Your business is a vase and it's cracked. Whether you know that or not, it is. Because regardless of what you put in it, something's always coming out. So as soon as you add a client, another one's leaving. As soon as you add a caregiver, another one's leaving. As soon as you make $1,000, here comes a bill for 500, right? So your whole goal in all of this is to not have them be Grand Canyons, is to have them be little cracks, but the water is so consistent and flowing that it never gets past that median point where you need a loan or you need to go find a partner to invest with you. So one of the proudest things about Swift Ops that we have is that we have not taken, there's nothing that's coming in outside. It's four guys that are running this company from the beginning, and due to that, we can make different decisions than if you take private equity or anything like that. We have freedom in that, but that was really a goal of ours. I want home care owners to experience the same thing. Not spend all of their money and burn it out, and then be like, "Oh my God, I just lost my life savings," but turn that into something that even in the toughest times, you're able to churn a small profit. And this is just a foundation. Like I said, I highly advise talking to folks like Nick and in the Hurricane and the Nobles and all of them because they can take you next level. This is simply a foundation so that you don't fall into the I got to close my doors. So, actionable steps you could take. What Nick said, identify your current benchmarks. Bad news. A lot of you won't be able to. So, but if you need help, right, reach out to your software company or talk to your people, but fix it and get the data going. You're early enough in 2025. You can fix this, right? Forget January. Don't go back. Don't make this a whole project. Just start doing it right now. And you'll have enough data in the next quarter. Review your past performance gaps. What do you think versus what does the data say? I feel like we're not hiring enough people, and then I'm turning away clients because I don't have enough caregivers. Well, are you looking at a caregiver utilization board? What is your recruiting like? What's your plan for interviews? Do you even have an ad out? Do you have a monthly open house? What's your pipeline? It has to be fluid. It can't just be an ad that becomes stagnant and then you bring it back and it's the same ad that becomes stagnant. People see that and they say, "Oh boy, no one must want to work there. They're always hiring." Like that's what happens. So you have to make it sound special. Hiring fairs, I highly advise. But performance gaps everywhere you want to look at. And then you're going to create yet limit the KPIs. I would limit them to what I said. Just you in your head will have all these different KPIs that are going on. Whereas like what I mean is I said about retention, new client retention, tenured client retention. Then I've got caregiver retention, and then tenured caregiver retention, and then 5+ caregiver year. So all these ones, you don't need to tell everybody that. You just have to say, we need to retain at X percent. We need to convert at X percent. Right? Conversion is different as well. I look at how many products do we convert? How many of our vendors get used? How many do we convert as experienced offices versus startups? Grinders versus billable hours of 1,500 or less versus, so that's for me as the boss, the owner, to worry about, not my team. They just need to hit that overall goal because I figured out if you hit it, I'm going to be happy. And then create a cadence of accountable action and review. So once you've got these things laid out, you can't just expect it to happen. So you have to have a cadence of accountable action. My advice, another little tidbit from the book of me, I guess, is huddles. Is as much as possible, you should do a huddle with your team. Now, very difficult when everyone's going out to different areas, but there are programs, there are apps that you can get that are very affordable or free where everyone can be on there and you can do a virtual huddle with everyone working that day, whether it's with all of your caregivers, like a once a week, or just your admin team, whatever it is. But I would huddle with them for 5-10 minutes. 5 minutes is it. I mean, really, hey, this is what we got to accomplish this week. This is where we stand. Does anyone need anything? Let me know. Reach out. Hey, I got this. Blah blah blah. Okay, we're gonna one off that because it's not all about this one person. It's about, is there anything standing in our way? And let's go. And that keeps them. Oh, they're not going to stop talking about it. But it also creates a forum. I would highly suggest trying to find some way to be able to communicate in a video aspect to all of your employees, caregivers included, at least once a month, providing some sort of transparency, not just nonsense fluff. And then review. Now you got to also say, okay, whether it's a scoreboard or whatever you've created, hey, we are at 85% conversion for January. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now we're just going to keep it rolling. We're not going to increase that goal. We need to maintain it. We're going to keep going, whatever it is, right? So that they feel it, they're happy about it, and then incentivize them, whatever it is. And, and don't assume because you told them and gave them a process that the data is going in the right way. Have someone that's auditing this. If your system allows for scheduled reporting, the data that you need from whatever reports you're asking them for, have the system automatically send it to you to your email, like SwiftOps does that, so that you don't have to do a lot of work to go look for it, but it's right there. You open it up, make sure the data is right or wrong, and you go make it part of your day. That way, if there is a problem and you come to them and say, "Hey, you didn't put in the referral sources for the 5 people that came in yesterday," they're like, "Ah, damn, right? I was trying to cut the corner. Oh yeah, I forgot." You'll see that happen less and less. So hopefully this has helped a little bit. I know we had an hour, right? I could talk about this stuff and go deeper and deeper into each area for like 5 hours on each subject. But I just want to try and share some knowledge about a nice little foundation you can build, some KPIs you can get behind. If you ever see me at an event, come talk to me. If you email me. If you want to ask me any questions. It's not all about software, but I really do appreciate the time to talk to everyone here and Nick for making this happen.
Absolutely. Chris, you're awesome and you always provide so much value. And I think, you made a joke about KPIs earlier or made a joke about micromanaging, right? And I see this a lot in home care of like micromanagers. And it's really easy to not micromanage when you have KPIs. The
Mm-hmm.
biggest fear that owners have is that the person's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which means you're not measuring their performance on what their KPIs are.
That's right.
Because you should, like, that's why, especially in sales, everyone knows sales is easy because, like, it's like you're either bringing in referrals in sales or you're not. It's an easy metric. But then how are you creating KPIs in other positions that you have, right? So that you can determine whether or not that person's doing a good job. They know what their goals are. They know what their KPIs are. They know what's motivating them and then incentivizing them based on their KPIs. And this comes back to like knowing the numbers. What are we,
Mm-hmm.
doing here? And then I have to say this side note because I noticed that there was a bunch of AI note takers on here at one point. Although a bunch of them jumped off, which is very curious. That makes me think that they had the free version and they couldn't stick on longer. That's what I mean. So don't cheap out on your AI, all right? They should be able to stay on longer. But you can use AI to help you kind of like use these things, to really be able to leverage and help create these KPIs if you're not sure, right? And then, but then tracking it, like, all right, what softwares and systems do
Hmm.
you have for them to track it where you can report these numbers and KPIs and then the clarity of your employees and everything becomes so easy
Yeah.
when everything's right there in front of you.
Right. Yeah, and if you're not measuring it, now you're making a Grand Canyon in your retention bucket because you're doing one of two things. You're retaining an employee who's never going to develop and is going to become a problem, um, or never get better, and you're always going to have the same problems, or you're not going to retain them because you've done nothing to develop them, and they're going to see this as a nowhere going job. So if you are tracking them and you're talking to them about it, and then you're getting that service level interview to provide them a developmental plan, which comes then training. All of this goes together into that retention bucket to get you past 7 months. Because that's where I was saying like some go longer. I might stay. I look at my over 1 year retention and say, yeah, but this person wants nothing. Like I've had employees just recently. I've had employees that I did those interviews with, and the like, hey, what do you want out of this job? Oh, to not have so many support interactions. What? What? Like, okay, you don't get it. You're like, okay, you've been here too long. That it's not a go anymore, right? So if you don't have those conversations, you can't develop someone. Everyone wants to help someone. Like they don't know you want to help them. As the owner, I'm telling you, your employees think you're nice. They like you. They love you. They're your brethren. You're going to fight to help you win. But they think, oh, yeah, they gave me this and that. They don't really ever believe anyone wants to help them until you actually do. And it's inherent that people want to help each other. So that you help develop this person, they're going to tell the next person that comes in, Nick's awesome. Nick helped me get my CNA. Nick put me through this dementia training. I came in here as just a frontline answer the phone person, and now I've been here for 3 years. Like that type of stuff helps retention as well. Anyway,
Yeah, once you have this information, then you can sell that in your recruitment process. This is a lot of
yeah,
times we make videos about what you're doing for your retention in your recruitment process so that when you have results like you develop this person and you help them to buy a car, now you can then use that, oh yeah, we helped this person to buy a car as a testimonial for
hmm,
recruiting. And so all of these pieces, like the retention, a lot of times people don't realize that a lot of stuff that you may be doing for retention should also be used for recruitment.
that's right.
And there's a lot of these moving pieces. I want to be make sure we're mindful of everyone's time.
Someone asked where they can find the recording, Nick.
Oh, yeah. So I'm gonna upload this to YouTube, and then I'll send it out to everyone that registered, so you can get access to the recording. So final note here, I just wanted to remind you guys about the Home Care Champions experience happening in September, September 24th to the 26th. I am fired up. I'm hoping to make it bigger, better, and I'm always looking to improve in what we did last year, and I'm just excited. I think there's a lot of fun. I know it's still a little ways away, but it's going to be an amazing event, and there's an incredible speaker lineup, so you don't want to miss that. So thank you again, Chris, for not only for your time here, but continuing to support, digital champions and, being our top sponsor and just supporting me in general. Just like you've always been in my corner, in developing myself and watching kind of me and my business grow. So I'm so grateful
I love it.
to you.
I love it. I love watching what you're doing, man. Doing awesome, and everyone that's hasn't taken advantage of you needs to. But that event was great. I look forward to being there again.
Excellent. Love it. Take care, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day.